My wife hates me, and honestly, that is perfectly fine because I'm not exactly her biggest fan either. We had the whole thing mapped out on the actual day of our wedding. The plan was simple: survive the marriage for a while, and then quietly file for divorce once enough time had passed to make it look respectable. For the first 3 months, we managed to coexist in the same house like polite roommates who barely knew each other. We stayed out of each other's way, kept conversations to logistics, and generally lived separate lives. But then, out of nowhere, Elena, who usually walks around with her nose in the air, acting like she's too important for earthly concerns, started nagging me. She started checking in on me like a concerned parent. I'd be heading out the door, and she'd look up from her laptop and ask why I was dressed up, who I was seeing, if it was a guy or a girl, and when I planned on coming back. She even tried to enforce a curfew. "Back by 9, she said once. "Not a minute later." I just rolled my eyes at her, shrugged it off, and walked out the door without giving her a real answer. When I first found out I was going to marry Elena, I wasn't entirely upset about it. Purely from a visual standpoint, she is exactly my type. She has this stylish short hair, really nice facial features, and big, expressive dark eyes. She stays in incredible shape, has long legs, and she walks with this confident stride that commands attention. But unfortunately, no amount of physical attractiveness can make up for the fact that she has a personality like sandpaper. Right before the wedding, I accidentally overheard her talking to her bridesmaids about me. One of them asked about me, and she scoffed and said, "Sure, he's handsome. But can you eat looks for dinner? What is he even good for? You guys are so shallow for thinking a photo makes him a catch." I remember rolling my eyes so hard it hurt. I thought to myself, if you dislike me that much, why are we even doing this? But obviously, despite all the complaints and the attitude, the wedding went ahead. Elena and I were essentially promised to each other by our grandfathers. The two old men had fought in the war together back in the day and built their businesses together, and apparently arranged marriages were the trendy thing to do in their circle back then. We were stuck with each other. The pressure ramped up because my grandfather's health took a sudden nosedive. His dying wish, according to the guilt trip the family laid on me, was to see Elena and me get married. Everyone scrambled to make it happen to please him. It has been 2 months since the ceremony, and weirdly enough, that old superstition about a wedding bringing good luck might actually have some truth to it. My grandfather, who was receiving critical notices from the doctors almost daily, suddenly got better right after the wedding. He recovered enough to leave the hospital, and now he's reportedly healthier than he's been in years. His birthday is coming up next week. I was sitting in the living room, flipping through some catalogs trying to figure out what kind of watch to buy an 88-year-old man, when I heard the front door open. I looked up and saw Elena walking in. She was wearing a sharp, tailored suit. Her posture was rigid, making her look very professional and slick, but her face was stern. She was loosening her tie with this impatient, casual gesture that, I have to admit, looked pretty cool. When she saw me sitting on the couch, she paused. She walked over with purpose, still holding the loosened tie, looking at me with that serious expression she always wears. For a split second, I had the absurd thought that she was going to tie me up or something. She stopped a few feet away and said, "You know Grandpa's birthday is next week, right?" I nodded. "Yeah, I'm looking for a gift." "The family's planning a massive event," she said. "We'll have company. We have to stay over at the old estate near the mountains." I nodded again. "Okay." She stayed quiet for a moment, shifting her weight like she had more to say but didn't want to say it. I just waited. Finally, she dropped the bomb. "We have to share a room." "So what?" I asked, looking up at her. She looked back at me, her eyes narrowing slightly like she was daring me to argue or make a big deal out of it. After a long pause where neither of us blinked, she relaxed her shoulders and replied with that arrogant tone she uses, Just letting you know." Then she turned around and walked away to her study. I gave a little snort of laughter, like I actually care about sharing a room. It's a room, not a prison cell. My grandfather's 88th birthday was a massive production. The guests were invited based on a strict hierarchy of family ties and social status. There was even a thick binder containing the guest list delivered to our room. I flipped through a few pages and realized why her family was so wealthy. They knew everyone. Elena walked into the room just as I was finishing a shower. Instinctively, I tightened my robe and brushed past her to get back into the bathroom to dry my hair. We didn't speak. When it was finally lights out, I lay there on my side of the bed, clutching the blanket and staring at the dim ceiling. I was trying to control my breathing. I wasn't exactly nervous, but I wasn't completely calm either. Even though I knew she wasn't interested in me, she made that abundantly clear when we drafted our divorce plan on our wedding day. It was still weird. We had agreed to act like a loving couple until my grandfather passed away, and then we would split. His happiness was the only reason for this union. She seemed eager to get the divorce over with, and there was no way I was going to be the pathetic guy clinging to her. We had a deal. I was nearly asleep when I heard Elena's voice cut through the dark. "Guests start arriving tomorrow." "Morning." "I know," I mumbled drowsily. "Remember the promise. Play the happy couple." "I got it." There was a pause. Suddenly, she sat up. The mattress shifted, jostling me a little. I looked up groggily and saw her reaching for the glass of water on the nightstand. She gulped it down quickly. As I was drifting back into sleep, her voice, a little hoarse now, broke the silence again. "Can you stop talking like you're flirting all the time?" My sleepiness vanished instantly, leaving me completely baffled. I stared at the back of her head. Who was flirting? And if I was going to flirt, it certainly wouldn't be with a brick wall like her. Irritated, I turned over and faced the wall. "If you don't like it, don't talk to me." The rest of the night passed without incident. It was the sound of birds chirping outside that woke me up the next morning. The old house in the mountains had incredible landscaping. Huge trees surrounded the property, and from the second-floor window, all you could see was lush green foliage. As I started to wake up, I sensed something was wrong. There was something stiff next to me, and it definitely wasn't my soft, cozy body pillow. I blinked my eyes open, trying to clear the blurriness. There she was, Elena, in my arms. I gasped, and the sound woke her up. She frowned, opening her eyes, and seemed just as surprised as I was to find us tangled up together. I swallowed hard and said slowly, "I am usually a very calm sleeper." She didn't respond. She just gave me a sharp, accusing look, as if to ask how we ended up with me draped over her like a heavy blanket. I hurriedly pulled away and scrambled to my side of the bed. No logical explanation came to mind, so I just blurted out, "Who knows? Maybe you tugged me over on purpose." "You clung to me," she retorted, her voice low and raspy from sleep. It was oddly nice to hear, if you ignored the actual words. "You grabbed my arms." She threw me a dismissive look before getting up and marching out of the bed, leaving me to stew in my confusion. Watching her cool, indifferent back as she walked to the bathroom, I thought bitterly, she can laugh now, but we'll see who has the last laugh later. The shock of waking up wrapped around Elena stuck with me all morning. Desperate for a reality check, I texted Ben, my old college roommate. "Am I a restless sleeper?" His reply came through instantly. "Buddy, sometimes I wondered if I was sleeping next to a corpse." "You don't move." Then what was with this whole Elena situation? I glanced at her as she came out of the bathroom. Her hair was still wet, water droplets dripping down her jawline, tracing her neck before disappearing under the collar of her shirt, soaking a small patch of fabric on her chest. I licked my lips absent-mindedly, and a wild thought flashed through my head. Am I actually attracted to her now? To be fair, Elena is undeniably attractive. She apparently had a bit of a wild streak in her youth, prompting her grandfather to send her to a military academy. It didn't tame her entirely, but when she entered the family business, she learned to keep a firm handle on things. Her bold nature morphed into this cool confidence. Those two contradictory traits, the wildness and the discipline, blended perfectly in her. It's too bad that every time she opens her mouth, she ruins it. Her personality is enough to take her out of the category of normal women. To avoid repeating the chaos from the morning, I decided to take precautions before bed that night. I lay flat on my back, legs together, hands folded neatly on my stomach like a vampire in a coffin, and I tucked the edges of the blanket tightly under my body. Even if Elena tried to steal the covers, I wouldn't budge. I thought that would do the trick. But nope. The next day, I woke up in the exact same position as the morning before, clinging onto Elena. She raised an eyebrow at me, looking casual and triumphant. I scratched my head, feeling defeated and questioning my own sanity. Why is this happening? Am I really that subconsciously into her? Did you really snuggle into my arms on purpose? I complained, trying to deflect. She just gave me a mysterious little smile. She reached for her phone on the nightstand, tapped the screen a few times, and shoved it in my face. I knew you'd deny it, so I took a photo. In the photo, taken from above, you can clearly see my profile. My body is snugly wrapped around her, and she looks like a helpless bird trapped in my embrace. My cheeks flushed instantly. I was mortified. In that picture, the size difference and the contrast between us made the whole thing look surprisingly intimate. It turned the crisp morning air in the room into something warm and awkward. Elena seemed to feel the shift, too. She put down the phone and cleared her throat awkwardly. Got nothing more to say, right? She asked. I sulked. You had time to take a picture, but you couldn't just push me away? I stared at her, trying to figure out what was going on in her head. With a completely innocent face, she said, I did push. You just always came back. What kind of person says stuff like that? I shouted, angry at my own traitorous body. Next time, kick me. I don't care if it kills me, just get me off. She gave me a sideways glance. Why are you whining so much? Then she got out of bed. Who was whining? I swear Elena has issues. It's like talking to people is a foreign language to her, and she interprets everything as flirting. I observed her during the day, and she spoke normally to everyone else. It was just with me that she acted so strange. She got annoyed when I tried to be nice, and she seemed to think I was hitting on her whenever I opened my mouth. I have never felt this unwelcome in my life. It made me want to bite her. But we still had to act lovey-dovey in front of the guests. Maintaining the act got tiresome really quickly. I was so frustrated by her attitude that I decided to fight back. If I can't annoy her into being nice, maybe I can annoy her into submission with excessive affection. I deliberately wrapped my arm around hers in front of her cousins, acting all friendly. I called her wifey and babe alternately. Elena looked at me with genuine shock, like she had just taken a physical blow. She shook off my hand clumsily, scratching her arm as if my touch had given her a rash. Then she grabbed a drink from a passing waiter and chugged it. I chuckled internally and whispered, "Grandpa is watching." Grandpa was indeed smiling at us from across the lawn. Elena glanced over and stiffened up, frozen like a statue. She looked deeply begrudging, but she couldn't do anything about it without breaking cover. I almost laughed out loud, so I kept at it, I got bolder and more outrageous. I spent the whole day clinging to her side like a barnacle. Even though Elena was clearly over it, by the end of the day, I was pretty disgusted by my own behavior too. Back in the room, I couldn't even bring myself to talk to her. I piled up the blankets and pillows on the narrow chaise lounge by the window, deciding I would crash there for the next few nights to avoid any more unauthorized cuddling. When Elena came out of the bathroom, she hesitated. "Why are you sleeping there?" I explained. "So you don't have to worry about me taking advantage of you in my sleep." She was silent. Later, after the lights were out, she asked, "Isn't it cramped?" "It's fine," I said, flipping over on purpose to make a point. After a moment of silence, she added, "You move around a lot. Don't fall off." "Why do you care?" I retorted. She fell silent. So Elena and I got stuck in this weird cycle. During the day, we were all over each other, acting like the picture-perfect couple for the cameras and the relatives. At night, it was like we were strangers sharing a hostel, not speaking a word more than necessary. I didn't know what Elena thought about it, but it was messing with my head. At least the big birthday event was finally wrapping up. Today was the final, most important day, which meant a lot of people to schmooze with. I kept smiling, nodding, chatting, and toasting with endless streams of business partners and distant relatives. I felt like a robot. Even though I was only taking tiny sips, I ended up drinking quite a lot by the end of the day. I was feeling undeniably tipsy. I covered my mouth and muttered to Elena, "I'm not feeling great. I'm heading back to the room." She glanced at me, then nodded. I must have been hallucinating or really drunk, because for a second I thought I saw actual worry in her eyes. With my head spinning, I rubbed my temples and stumbled back to the room. Exhaustion took over immediately, and I let my thoughts wander into oblivion. The next thing I knew, it was morning. The birds were chirping again, which felt like a cruel joke. My eyelids felt heavy, refusing to stay open. I gave up on trying to turn over, only to find that every bone in my body felt like it had been soaked in vinegar. Confused, I peeked open one eye and saw Elena fast asleep right there. Thanks to the training from the last couple of nights, I didn't panic immediately. I started to move away quietly, but then I realized she had me in a tight hug. I couldn't move an inch. I pushed at her gently, and then saw that we were, well, not exactly fully clothed. I snapped awake. My mind started racing, trying to figure out if we had actually hooked up last night. Elena woke up, and the first thing she said was, "I'll take responsibility." She sounded pretty sincere, which was terrifying. I gave her a side eye. Shrugging off her arm, I grabbed a robe and tried to make my way off the bed. I had to abort that mission immediately because my legs were too wobbly. I almost hit the ground. My voice came out raspy, barely there. Elena hesitated, her hands hovering behind me just in case I needed support. I ignored her and headed straight into the bathroom, locking the door behind me. I looked at my reflection in the mirror and let out a huge sigh. 3 rounds of splashing cold water on my face helped clear the fog in my head. Fuzzy memories started coming back. Was I the one who started things last night? Bits and pieces fluttered into my mind. I remembered Elena gently wiping my face. I remembered grumbling about the bed being too hard. I remembered she sweetly carried me, or helped me, to a softer spot. Yet I couldn't stop complaining about my tie being too tight. She obliged every silly demand of this drunkard, and I, like a silly puppy, had slobbered all over her face in gratitude. From there, things just spiraled out of control. It was a night of wild chaos, and honestly, bliss. With my hands over my face, I felt overwhelmed by the whole situation. Faking being lovey-dovey is one thing. Purposely being overly affectionate to be annoying is another. But not being able to separate dreams from reality and actually sleeping with your fake wife, that is the worst of all. I took a shower anyway. The warm water helped clear the rest of the fog. Finally ready, I opened the door and found Elena all dressed up. Before she could even start speaking, I jumped in. "Look, we're adults. Last night was no big deal. Let's just forget it, okay?" She paused, staring at me. Then she said, "I'm not that easy." "Well, I am," I said, trying to be dismissive. I looked at her and reminded her of her own words. "You said you'd divorce me after Grandpa passed away." She looked like she wanted to argue, but then there was a knock at the door. Elena's mom was calling us down for lunch. That was when I realized it was already noon. Sleeping in that late was embarrassing, so I used Elena as a human shield and sent her out first. I'm not sure what she told them, but as I stepped out, everyone gave me looks of deep concern, as if I were some endangered panda that needed protecting. Anyway, the birthday party was finally over, and we went back to our regular city apartment to live our separate married lives. Still, what happened that night was like a thorn in my throat, occasionally pricking at me. Worse yet, every time I saw Elena, those thoughts popped up. Even when she was wearing a baggy shirt, my gaze shamelessly traced her body's outline. It was driving me nuts. I asked Ben for advice. He called me hopeless and decided to take me to a fashion show to get my mind off her. It was a fancy, beach-themed, spring/summer women's swimwear show. We had front-row seats, so close you could almost touch the runway. Beautiful models strutted my way, some even giving me flirty looks. After that, Elena didn't seem like such a big deal anymore. The show was like a factory reset for my brain. When I got home, I felt much more at ease seeing Elena, but then she shoved her phone in my face. "Is this you?" Turns out there was a picture circulating online from the show, featuring me drooling over a model. I confidently said, "Yeah, that's me. Why?" She looked so mad I swore she was about to burst a blood vessel. She took a deep breath, trying to calm down. "Our family is traditional. Events like this are a no-go. Stop attending these shows. They're shameful." She gritted her teeth. "You are my husband." I shot back, "Not for much longer." Guess I really ticked her off that time. She didn't talk to me for days. Honestly, she didn't talk much to me before either. But after the birthday party, she had been acting weird, trying to chat me up for no reason. She would even report her schedule to me, telling me when she was leaving for work and coming back. It was awkward. Now that things were back to normal with our typical distant marriage vibes, I was actually quite content. A few days later, Ben got dumped by his girlfriend, so he invited me to a bar for some drinks. I gladly went. In the living room, Elena was sitting on the cashmere rug, dressed in simple black loungewear, working on her silver laptop with documents scattered around her. She had a serious business vibe going on. I walked right past her, but she suddenly spoke up. "Dressed like that? Where are you going? With a guy or a girl? It's late. When will you be back? Curfew is at 9. "Don't even start," I said. "You've got to be kidding me." Recently, she had barely acknowledged my existence, and now she was doing this whole lecturing routine again? I turned back and rolled my eyes at her, making sure she saw it. She looked too stunned to react. I calmly walked out. The bar was owned by a friend of ours. When I arrived, Ben was already one drink deep. In the VIP section, Ben was surrounded by friends and a few unfamiliar faces. Both guys and girls. Lively as ever. I quietly asked him what was up. I thought he wanted a drinking buddy for a heartbreak session. "Just ran into them," he whispered back. "Had no choice." I paused, smiled, and raised my glass to toast the group. Someone asked, "Where did you find this handsome guy, Ben?" "Never seen him before. Keeping secrets, huh?" "He's taken," came a voice from the corner. I looked up. That person seemed familiar, like maybe a cousin of Elena's with the same distant vibe. I nodded, feeling slightly uncomfortable. Then another guy exclaimed, "Oh, that's Elena's husband, the not-so-close one." "What's this about?" Suddenly, everyone was interested, and they started sharing stories. I was baffled that this gossip was so widespread. The not-so-close incident happened at the swimwear show with Ben. Before the show began, a random guy had asked me what to gift Elena for her birthday. To be honest, I didn't even know her birthday was coming up, let alone what she liked. I had laughed and told him, "I don't really know Elena that well." He had looked puzzled, but didn't say anything, and walked off. It seems like he told everyone everything, probably even shared the pictures of me at the show with Elena. The group erupted in laughter, finding it amusing. I was pretty embarrassed, thinking the subject would change soon. I was wrong. "Elena, over here," someone shouted. I looked over and saw her walking through the crowd. She was in a different outfit now. Gone was the simple black loungewear, replaced with a stunning red dress, her hair styled perfectly. She looked pretty good. She walked over, drawing eyes like she was the only person in the room. For some reason, it was a bit embarrassing. Maybe because we're linked by marriage. I avoided making eye contact. The guy next to me gave up his spot, and Elena sat beside me, bringing her unique scent with her. It's an indescribable scent, but whenever I catch a whiff of it in bed, it guarantees a good night's sleep. She quietly asked, "What were you all talking about?" Someone joked, "We were discussing how Mark is not familiar with you." "Oh," she replied blandly. She placed her phone on the table carelessly. It lit up just then. Someone peeked and let out a huge gasp. That noise sparked everyone's curiosity. All eyes turned to Elena's phone screen. She didn't hide it, letting everyone see. I glanced over, and my face turned beet red. Her lock screen was evidence from before. That photo where I was all tangled up with her, sound asleep. The lock screen totally shattered the rumor that Elena and I weren't close. I mean, judging from that photo, we were obviously pretty close in bed. Everyone started teasing us or giving us flirty stares. I almost melted away from the shame. Even though I was embarrassed, I had nowhere to vent my frustration, so I sneakily reached under the table to pinch Elena's waist. I wanted to throttle her, but when I pinched her, she seemed startled, as if she'd been jolted by electricity. When everyone noticed her jump, Elena just smiled slightly and playfully said, "All right, stop teasing, or else Mark won't let me off the hook later." And just like that, a second wave of teasing glances came our way. I forced a smile and clenched my fist under the table. Elena was subtly showing affection all night. She didn't even need my help to do it. She would just glance at me occasionally, stop me from drinking too much, or pass me a fruit plate when I looked bored. By the end of the night, everyone thought she really loved me. Even Ben was convinced, telling me I didn't know how good I had it. Honestly, I was flustered. I suspected Elena was getting back at me for embarrassing her at my grandfather's birthday party. Finally, the evening ended. Since we'd all had a bit to drink, our family sent drivers to pick us up. Elena and I sat on opposite sides of the back seat, staying quiet. I figured it'd be a silent ride home, but then she suddenly spoke. "Don't drink outside anymore?" "Why should I listen to you?" I blurted out. Maybe it was an act of defiance after playing along all night. She turned to look at me and said, "Do you remember what you were like last time you got drunk?" That got me. Drunk me had hugged and kissed her, acting like a needy puppy. So I went quiet. She kept watching me. Then her voice got a bit softer. "Can you not sit like that?" I couldn't see any issue with how I was sitting, so I didn't bother changing my posture. I was just resting against the car door, feeling like I had no bones. I snapped at her. "If you want to boss someone around, go do it at the office. I'm tired. I don't want to talk to you right now." "Clothes," she simply said. I looked down. My shirt had ridden up a little, showing some of my waist. I didn't think it was a big deal, though, so I grumbled, "If you don't like it, just close your eyes." The driver in the front had discreetly put down the divider between the seats and left a little blanket at our disposal. Elena grabbed it and threw it over me, covering the exposed area. Her move made me want to laugh at how ridiculous it was. I sat up, looked at her, and asked, "Did you take the wrong pills tonight?" "No," she said. "I'm your wife." Since the divider was soundproof, I boldly replied, "A wife I'm going to divorce eventually." "No, we aren't," she replied, pausing. "Even if your grandpa passes away, we're not divorcing." Suddenly I felt tense. "What are you trying to say?" Her eyes were suddenly determined as she looked at me. "I like you." I just couldn't wrap my head around it. How did Elena end up liking me? But looking back, ever since the birthday party, her attitude had been hot and cold, sometimes even a little possessive. I restated firmly, "That night was really just an accident. Don't feel like you need to like me because of it. There's really no need." She murmured something, and her face darkened a bit, but it didn't faze me. What I was really scared of was Elena liking me. "It's not because of that night," she said. "Then why?" I asked. I fell silent when she didn't answer. "Didn't you dislike me before?" I tried to remind her of what she found annoying. "I'm so needy, always whining, picky with food, slow to do things other than looking good. I've got no redeeming qualities." For every point I mentioned, her face got a shade darker. "Aren't those the things you hated?" I pressed. She took a deep breath, seemingly swallowing back her frustration. Her face softened a touch, and she said, "But now I like them." After a short pause, she turned to me. "So, what do we do?" "I like you," she confessed. "Your whining, your slowness, your pickiness. I like them all." The sound of my heartbeat was loud in my ears. Her eyes were too bright, and I couldn't look directly at her. I turned my head away and surrendered. "Well, I guess if you like me, you like me." I figured someone like Elena, so proud and aloof, wouldn't actually do anything even if she liked someone. But boy, was I wrong. She went straight to seduction mode. Suddenly, I often found her swimming at the pool downstairs or running on a treadmill in the living room. Every time she wore next to nothing. She'd be there with this intense expression, drenched in sweat. It was like the air was thick with hormones. The whole scene was intense. It happened so often I started to feel a bit overwhelmed. Swimming? Sure, fine. But running in the living room with so little on? What could I do? I had to bear it. Covering my nose to hide my reaction, I'd pour myself a huge glass of ice-cold water and quickly retreat upstairs. As time went on, Elena's teasing grew even fiercer. With a face and figure close to perfection, you'd think she'd keep a straight face and act all cool. But when she dropped that act and turned up the charm, there was no way someone with weak resistance like me could withstand it. I didn't even dare to hang around the house much. I started spending afternoons in a cafe. More often than not, it was the cafe Ben and I had opened right after graduation. I supplied the funds. He managed it. I didn't visit a lot, usually, so showing up several days in a row caught Ben's curious eye. He wondered what was up. I shook my head but sighed internally. There was a femme fatale at home. Then suddenly, it was Elena's birthday. We went back to the family house for lunch. On the way back, she asked if I wanted to join a few friends to celebrate that night. I shook my head and said no. It just didn't make sense since we were bound to separate eventually. Best not to get too involved. It would be easier to break up later. Okay, she said, her voice sounding a little flat. I strangely felt a bit guilty. I mean, it was her birthday, and my response seemed a bit cold-hearted. Trying to make up for it, I awkwardly offered, "Happy birthday. Have fun." "Thanks," she replied in a distant tone. She got back really late. She seemed pretty drunk, and surprisingly it was Ben who brought her back. I hurried to help them into Elena's bedroom. Watching as they carefully placed her on the bed, I couldn't help but ask, "How'd she end up this smashed?" She drank way more at Grandpa's birthday and was fine. Then one of her friends hesitated. "Elena downed everything offered tonight. We got carried away since she was drinking so easily," another added. "She didn't seem in a good mood. She said nobody cared if she drank, nobody was there to stop her, so she was blowing off steam." I blinked. Was she blaming me for not being there? After seeing her friends off, I turned to leave but caught a glimpse of her lying on the bed. She looked uncomfortable, with furrowed brows and lips pressed tight. I hesitated for a moment, hearing her let out a soft moan. In my mind, I told myself I was just returning a favor for the times she helped me. But then Elena opened her eyes, and we just stared at each other. She stared blankly at me, her eyes a bit red, her cheeks flushed with that tipsy blush, looking innocent and shy in a way. I pushed her away like I was burned. It got awkward really quick. Just as I was about to say something, she rasped, "I'm willing." I gave her a look. I thought, what do you mean you're willing? I haven't even said I'm willing. Drunk Elena quickly fell back to sleep, but I was done with helping her. Whatever, it's not me who's uncomfortable. I shut the door and left in a hurry. That whole night I tossed and turned. I couldn't sleep at all. I kept thinking about Elena's face when she said she was willing. I was shocked, but more than that, I felt anxious. Drunk Elena telling me she was willing. That was it. But it got my heart racing. It was scary. I even started doubting my strong decision to divorce her. I gave in to the fact that Elena is definitely charming and dangerous. To avoid falling deeper, I decided I should keep my distance. So I decided to move out for a few days. The next morning, I started packing my bags when Elena suddenly knocked on my door. "Thanks for last night. You heading out?" She was staring at my luggage. It was awkward. "Yeah, just going on a short trip." "But could you maybe delay it? Toby is coming over and he really wants to hang out with you." "Toby?" She nodded. "Jackson is my nephew. 4 years old. Super adorable. Every time he sees me, he dives into my arms and calls me Auntie, then gives me a big kiss on the cheek. It's just heart-melting." I remembered the kid. I had promised to play with him and agreed he could come over. It wouldn't do to break a promise to a kid. I put my luggage back. At 3 in the afternoon, the little guy rolled in with his suitcase. He wore a tiny suit, looking quite the gentleman, and said in his sweet voice, "Sorry for the trouble." That was just too cute. I reached out and ruffled his hair. Then he acted true to form, reaching out to Elena. "Auntie, pick me up." Elena was all affectionate, squatting down and scooping him up, bouncing him like she was weighing him. The big and the little made an adorable scene. Watching Elena enjoy his cuddles, I playfully asked, "Who's more spoiled? Me or him?" Elena thought for a moment, then said, "You." I was surprised. I mean, I can't possibly out-cute this little charmer. This kid is born with it. Maybe something clicked wrong in my head, but I instinctively opened my arms to Elena too. Elena looked stunned. I was stunned too, and kind of frustrated at my silly move, but there was no turning back. Gathering courage, I mimicked the little guy's tone. "Honey, hold me." Elena's expression shifted. The next second, holding her adorable nephew, she stumbled away from me. The whole scene was hilarious, and I laughed out loud. After being teased by Elena so many times, I finally got one back. Toby is one of those super well-behaved kids. He's quiet, loves to smile, is sweet-tongued and obedient. Just a delight to be around. With just one hiccup, he wanted to sleep with me and Elena. When he first asked, I immediately suspected Elena. Had this little guy been brought in as an assist by her? Elena acted all innocent, mouthing, "Up to you." The little guy tugged one of my hands and one of Elena's and whined, "Please?" I melted and agreed. Since there was a kid in the middle, nothing could happen anyway. We decided to sleep in my room to hide the fact that Elena and I, the plastic couple, were sleeping in separate rooms. Elena snuck her stuff into my bedroom when the little guy wasn't looking. In the shower, I glanced at those personal items of hers and felt a bit off. That unease only magnified when I returned to the bedroom. Elena and Toby were snuggled up at my headboard, deeply engrossed in a storybook. Elena read, and Toby listened, occasionally asking questions. Elena was patient, and her voice was calm and pleasant. In the quiet night, the image was so warm it felt like a real home. Especially when Toby patted the space next to him, urging me, "Uncle, come here." It really felt like a family of three. I cleared my head of inappropriate thoughts, lifted the blanket on one side, and got in. Toby immediately scooted over, hugging me and sniffing like a little puppy. Then he mumbled, "Uncle, you smell nice." Elena paused, then didn't read on. I patted his back. "Sleepy?" He nodded. I turned off the light. Toby, tired from a day of play, quickly fell asleep. Yet I couldn't sleep. Listening to Elena's breathing, I knew she was awake, but she didn't speak. Her unique scent drifted to my nose, marking her presence. She didn't need to do anything, yet she had such an impact on me. I realized how wrong I'd been. I thought with a kid around, nothing would matter between me and her sharing a bed, but obviously, it mattered a lot. "Is Toby tough to handle?" "Thanks for dealing with him," Elena suddenly whispered. I didn't respond. That's something a wife says to her husband, yet it doesn't apply to us. She chuckled softly, speaking even quieter. "Are you asleep?" "No," I replied. "Then why ignore me? I don't want you saying I'm whining again." She chuckled more, her laughter shaking the bed. "Why so grudgy?" "I'm just like that," I mumbled back. "Then I like it," she said. Suddenly I felt my face get warm, and my body started heating up too. I kicked the blanket a bit and turned away, deciding not to talk anymore. For those few days, Elena canceled a lot of her work just to focus on spending time with Toby. I thought I could finally catch a breather, but then Toby kept insisting I play too, so it turned into me and Elena both playing with him. It was fine at home, but if we went out, whether it was to an amusement park or the aquarium, people always thought we were a family. First, I felt anxious. After all, I wasn't the kid's dad, and Elena was a wife I was about to divorce. But as it happened more, I got numb to it. A family is a family, even if only on the surface. Soon enough, it was Toby's last night with us. The little guy wrapped one arm around me, another around Elena, laying them on his soft little tummy. "See, going home tomorrow. I'm really going to miss this," he said. I rubbed his tummy. "I'll miss you too." The little boy suddenly perked up and hugged his auntie, swinging her arm like a child. "Auntie, when will you invite me over to play again? I want to come back." Elena coughed lightly. "Next time, maybe." Something felt off. Elena had told me the boy insisted on coming here. I pulled the little boy close, whispering, "Toby, did Auntie invite you to come play?" He said, "Yeah. I haven't even finished my homework yet." I glanced at Elena. She looked nervous and a little guilty. The truth was clear. No wonder he's been pushing Elena and me together lately. He was playing matchmaker. I shot a knowing look at Elena and cradled the boy to sleep. She seemed like she wanted to explain, but I cut her off with, "Toby wants to sleep." I was annoyed. Elena actually used her nephew to lure me? What a tactic. In the middle of the night, I was woken up. Careful not to wake Toby, still groggy, I was led quietly out of the room. She stopped in the hallway and confessed. "I admit it. I brought Toby here." "Oh," I replied coldly. Her voice was pleading. "I didn't know how else to make you like me," she said. "It was a stupid idea from my friends. They said having a kid around would help." I hesitated. "But when you started packing to leave, I panicked. And here we are." I scolded her. "You're an idiot. They meant a kid of ours." Elena cheekily asked, "Would you like that?" I was speechless. She seemed to be waiting for my answer. "But I'm not a kid." Suddenly there was a noise from downstairs. Maybe the aunt up for a bathroom break. The noise was erratic. I held my breath. "We won't be discovered, will we?" I was still scared. We stayed closely together, breathing each other's air until the noise stopped. I nudged Elena, but she didn't budge. She hoarsely asked, "When will you say yes to me?" I played dumb. "Say yes to what?" "You know." I thought for a second. "When did you start liking me?" She couldn't pin a time, but said, "When you snuggled up to me back then." I lost it. I felt embarrassed and denied it. "When did I ever snuggle up to you?" She said, "I have proof." I dreaded that photo. I accused her. "So you didn't push me away then, right? You pretended to be all innocent. Admit it, you enjoyed it." I scolded her, but she admitted softly, "Yeah, it was nice." She pinched my waist, whispering, "So when will you promise me?" I felt a tickle and wanted to pull away, but there was no retreat in her embrace. Her eyes were intense and determined. I gave in. "Depends on how you behave." "You already said yes," she said, and then she cheekily kissed me. After Elena and I became official, the first thing she did was introduce me to her friends. She said I had left her to be teased by them for weeks after I claimed not to know her well. Even though some of those rumors got crushed, the gossip was still out there. Today, we were here to clear things up. Right before going in, Elena grabbed my shoulder, staring intently at me. Seeing through her thought, I said, "Relax. I'll give you face in there." Elena shook her head. "No, I'm regretting it," she said. "You look too good, and it's all women in there. Let's just skip the meal and go home." She led me to the exit, but the door opened, and we were pulled in. A few familiar faces from the bar and others I didn't know were watching me. I was okay, but Elena wasn't having it. She cleared her throat. "Get a sense of who's here and stop staring." The room went quiet. I felt embarrassed. Some looked like they were holding back laughter. Someone couldn't hold it and laughed. "You teased us before, and now look at you. Are you like this when in love too?" Elena shot back. "Is your husband more handsome than mine? My husband's the best." Another chimed in, and just like that, A group of women debated whose husband was the best looking, as if there were a prize. Elena seemed especially into it. I didn't know she had such a habit of bragging about me. Feeling shy, I sipped my tea quietly. I learned more about Elena's past during all the chatter. She never dated, no guys she liked, and if not for her grandfather pushing a marriage, she might still be single. I looked at Elena, still surprised. She has everything on paper: looks, background. So how come? On the way home, I asked her. It's not that I couldn't. I just didn't want to. Whatever crossed my mind made me smile. Back then, I thought it was just trouble. I glared playfully. Thinking about a future with Elena left me dazed. I asked, "And now? What do you think?" She stopped the car. Looking sincerely at me, she said, "All my heart is yours. What do you think?" I shook my head. "Not good enough. Say it again." She continued. "Want to be with you forever. No divorce. Just us." I laughed. "Isn't that cheesy? Say it again." She started again. "Want you?" Halfway through, she muttered, disgusted. "How come you're so needy?" I owned up. "What can I do? I am needy." "So what now?" she asked with a voice mingling helplessness and hope. "Of course," I said. "Love you forever."